Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras are distinguished by their qualities of work, O chastiser of the enemy, in accordance with the modes of nature. Text 42. Shammodamastapa shaucham shantir arjavam evacha jnanam vijnanam ashtikyam brahma karma svabhavajam. Translation: peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, wisdom, knowledge, and religiousness. These are the qualities by which the Brahmanas work. Text 43. Sharyam tejo tritir daksham yudhe chapyapalayanam danam ishvara bhavascha kshatram karma svabhavajam. Translation: heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the qualities of work for the Kshatriyas. Text 44. Rishigoraksha vanijam vaishya karma svabhavajam paricharyatmakam karma shudrasyapi svabhavajam. Translation: farming, cattle raising, and business are the qualities of work for the Vaishyas, and for the Shudras, there is labor and service to others. Text 45. Sve sve karmanya abhitrata shamsidim labate nara svakarma nirita siddhim yata vindati tachchunyu. Translation: by following his qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now please hear from me how this can be done. Text 46. Yata pravritir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam svakarmana tam abhyarjya siddhim vindati manavaha. Translation: by worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all-pervading, man can, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. Text 47. Shreyan swadharma viguna paradharmat svanushthitat svabhava niyatam karma kurvanapnuti kilbisham. Translation: it is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Prescribed duties, according to one's nature, are never affected by sinful reactions. Text 48. Sahajam karma konteya sadosham apinatyajat sarva ramba hidoshena dumenagnir ivakritaha. Translation: every endeavor is covered by some sort of fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore, one should not give up the work which is born of his nature, O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of faults. Text 49. Asakta buddhi sarvatra jitatma vigataspriha naishkarmya siddhim paramam sanyasena digachati. Translation: one can obtain the results of renunciation simply by self-control and by becoming unattached to material things and disregarding material enjoyments. That is the highest perfectional stage of renunciation. Text 50. Siddhim prapto yata brahma tatapnoti nabodhame samase naiva konteya nishta janashya para. Translation: O son of Kunti, learn from me in brief how one can attain to the supreme perfectional stage, Brahman, by acting in the way which I shall now summarize. Text 51 through 53. Bodhya vishuddhaya yukto trityatmanam niyam yacha Shabdadin Vishayams Chaktva Raga Dvesha Vyodasyacha Vivikta Sevi Laghuashi Yata Vakaya Manasaha Jnana Yoga Paro Nityam Vairagyam Samupashritaha Ahankaran Balam Darpam Dhamam Krodham Parigraham Vimuchya Nirmama Shanto Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Translation: being purified by his intelligence and controlling the mind with determination, giving up the objects of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred, one who lives in a secluded place, who eats little and who controls the body and the tongue, and is always in trance and is detached, who is without false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, and who does not accept material things. Such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. We'll go back to text 41 and I'll read some translations and purports by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The preeminent Shiksha Guru of all of ISKCON. Text 41. Translation. Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras are distinguished by their qualities of work, O chastiser of the enemy, in accordance with the modes of nature. So it's by the work that you can tell, that you can distinguish between these things. And it's going in accordance with the modes of nature, which everyone has taken a body in accordance with the modes of nature, and is acting according to those. Text 42. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, wisdom, knowledge, and religiousness. These are the qualities by which the Brahmanas work. These are such nice qualities that we're all trying to attain and obtain more of. Peacefulness, peace, peace of mind. It is said there's no peace in the material world. You've got the material world, and the opposite of that is the spiritual world. Just like Krishna's got his external energy and his internal energy. Mahamaya versus Yoga Maya. Bondage versus liberation. Impure versus pure. And self-control, the ability to control oneself in all those times when part of your mind says, no, I want to lose control. I want to go against the teachings of the great teachers, the great acharyas, and my teachers and the people around me. Self-control, even though maybe I shouldn't say this thing. Oh, I just think I have to say it. I'll feel so better if I just say it. Get it out, right? Is what they say in the material world. Get it off your chest. It's not always so good. We want to actually be able to maybe not have that urge of allowing ourselves to get everything off our chest, and sometimes we try to clarify. An interaction can be so brief, but then maybe we think about it for so long, and it can be with a stranger or someone we just met. And then we're thinking, oh, I misinterpreted what he said. I need to apologize to him. Or, sometimes maybe even going back to someone and apologizing, sometimes that can even make it sometimes worse. Recently I met someone and they said something, and it was just a joke. It was just funny little joke. And I was already down on myself about something that I had really wanted to do that I wasn't able to do. And so I was already down on myself. And so they said something, and then I realized later, oh, they weren't talking about that. They were talking about this other thing. And so, I apologized. Someone I had just met, and they said, I don't know what you're talking about. It's okay. It's all right. So just realize that we're thinking about these things. Sometimes these interactions, the other person is not going over it so much the way we might be. We might go over it and have some realization, but maybe we can just keep it to ourselves sometimes. And that's something I'm working on. And then austerity, purity of mind is something we're all wanting to be more of, to get more of. Where do these thoughts come from? Is that thought me, or was that sent to me, and I'm supposed to now learn how to gracefully conquer that thought? And I remember sometimes playing music or something on the bandstand, and I would have sometimes a thought about kind of maybe a despicable thought about someone or something that I was playing with or something. Where did that come from? That's not me. Who knows? Some of these, buildings are very old, and who knows, all the energy that sometimes I'm playing in a building that's from like 1920 or something. So many people have crossed in and out of these buildings, and so it's probably got some energy, but I'm thinking, where did this thought come from? That's not me. And so I'm working on how to purify my mind. And I think if it becomes purified enough, the thought doesn't even come in. There's like a steel trap or a lock, and that thought doesn't come in that way. And so purity of mind, as well as, of course, purity of body. We've learned so many techniques that we didn't know when we were younger about cleanliness, and some very nice techniques and ways of life that are passed down from above, the descending knowledge. And so we weren't taught these things, but hopefully we've been open-minded enough to see the power of these pure techniques, and we've taken from teachers that we really trust, and so not everyone is trying to work on bodily or mental purity the way we are, and but purity, Krishna is all pure, is completely 100% pure. And every conversation that you have with someone, you can there's someone else there in that conversation that we may not be thinking of always. Krishna's there in that conversation, and you can either acknowledge Krishna or choose to ignore Krishna, but Krishna is always there, even when you have a thought, or Krishna is looking and seeing, and then giving you, if you have a thought, maybe he's giving you a small correction, or he's encouraging you. Yes, that's a good thought. But Krishna's right there in those interactions. Don't forget that he's there with you when you're by yourself, when you think you're by yourself. He's there when you're dancing and chanting the Lord's glories, of course. He's there when you're having a pleasant conversation with a friend. He's there when you're having a tough conversation with an associate. And he's right there. And so we have to acknowledge that, and we have to remember that. Sometimes we're having these thoughts of, oh, this person didn't respect me, or things like that, or I don't respect this person. And this is a lot of bodily concepts. A lot of times this is not, we are not just these bodies. And if we understand that, we can obtain the Brahma Bhuta platform and then begin real devotional service. And so we're not, this is bodily. A lot of these interactions are just relating to the body, and they aren't relating to your permanent soul, your soul, which is beyond this body. So we're so locked into thinking about this body, this temporary body, which is really just it's like a shirt or a coat. What happens when you've worn a shirt for 5 years? You simply, if it's tattered and unwearable, you simply discard the shirt or donate it, but you don't get attached to the shirt, and you don't say that I'm the shirt, you're not the shirt. And so Krishna is saying, if you want to respect him, then we can forget this notion of deserving some sort of respect for this reason or that, Krishna might actually see two people as equals in some ways, as far as what they need to work on. And that might be why he puts them together sometimes, because he knows they can work out hopefully a lot of things. So the people that are around us, and Krishna is putting us around these people for a reason in his perfect plan. He's got a mystical, opulent plan, and everything is so carefully organized. Everything that we're experiencing, everything we're allowed to do, and so he might think these people need to get together to become more humble. So he's helping us become more humble, more pure, helping us become more like him. And we want to be like him. We have people that we can really respect, that we really want to be like. And isn't that nice to have actually good influences? Good association is such a great thing. And it's like the more you know, the more you learn. They say the more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know, and that will always be true. Krishna has always got. There's so much that we won't know, and Srila Prabhupada in the purports here talks about how the living entity has some mystical power, even that they may not be aware of. He talks about your growing of your fingernails. It's not happening. You're not having to manage that. It's just happening. So he says that's something like a mystical quality. So if we have some of these things, think about what Lord Sri Krishna has. Think about that level of mystical quality that's so amazing, that he can do a million things at once, and he can be at the same time taking a slumber or spending time with his devotees, friends, and family members. And we are in the kind of the friend making business. When we go out and give someone a book, try to give someone a book, we have to kind of quickly become their friend. And I remember recently I was doing some book distribution at the Asura Amphitheater, as Rishi Kumar Prabhu calls it. It's actually called Azura, but it's so close to Asura, which means demon. It's really funny. And I was talking to someone, and I realized, and this isn't always the case, so it's case by case, but they wanted to tell a couple quick stories, and I actually showed some interest and follow-up question, and that was the most Lakshmi I got that day. The person gave a very nice donation for the books. And I have to think maybe sometimes it's because, I showed a little bit of interest, and I related with them a little bit, on the same page a little bit, showed some interest, and then I quickly tried to, divert things to the purely spiritual nature of the books, and so use your intelligence, and it's different for different. It'll be different for each person that you come across, and that's what's wonderful about it. It's you just never know. It's always changing. The energy out there is constantly changing. You can sit outside and watch the cars pass, and you'll never see the same set of cars pass, twice in a row. It's always new. It's always fresh. Every day, Krishna gives us a new day, and we can start again. And Krishna, let me chant my rounds as early as I can today, and let me not forget you for a second. And let me always remember you. And thank you for this fresh start. And thank you for a chance to try to learn how to serve the servant, your servant of the servant of the servant of your servant, Dasanu Das. And, we're the lucky ones, to get to chant the Maha Mantra. Not everyone is so lucky. We're actually the lucky ones, and so it's a real privilege to get to associate with Krishna and his devotees. And so chanting is a wonderful thing. And as you know, as you chant throughout the day and chanting at least 16 rounds, and some people might be working up to that level, but realizations will come, and it's a mystical process. People say, I talked to someone recently, and I've been trying to give some Krishna conscious to, and mantras don't work. Mantras don't work, and that's how most people are thinking, that this is just a mantra. How's that going to work? And it's a mystical process, and it happens over time, and it's called the Maha Mantra. It's the great mantra. It's a sound vibration. Sound vibration works on a really deep level that we can't even understand and always see. But we do it because Srila Prabhupada has asked us to, and Lord Chaitanya gave us this chanting, 500 years ago, and he said, in this age of Kali, this is the best way. This is the only way to not have to be so mired in entanglement and sense gratification. And so I said, hey, nothing else has been working for you, so you should give this a try. This person seems to be pretty down and pretty overwhelmed. So it's like, hey, nothing else is working. This is working for so many people, and it's catching on all around the world. So many millions of devotees, and Srila Prabhupada's books and the great books of the Vaishnavacharyas, and there's so much information in there, and it's all beautiful. You can turn to one page and get the whole science, and it's so voluminous. There's so much knowledge there to take as one likes, and there's so much kirtan and togetherness. And we found this family where we said, oh, there's people kind of like me. Well, it's kind of nice. I finally found a group of people, and they're kind of like me in some ways. I feel like I can actually express myself, and I feel like there's not so much negativity, and I feel like, they have their minds in the right place, and they're putting God in the center. And that's what's wrong with the material world. They're putting so much sin in the center, or so much sense gratification. And that person I was talking about said, they said, I've had so many lives. They believe in reincarnation, and they said, I've had so many lives, and in this life, I tried to have, I wanted 1,000 challenges. I wanted so many challenges for purity. And after this life, I can't wait just to have some nothingness. They're looking forward to some nothingness. And I said, well, that's not really true pleasure. The absence of pain is not really pleasure. And, like merging into the Brahman, or losing one's identity. Srila Prabhupada makes it clear that that's not happiness. We actually are. That's a good place to start. But then after that, you have to almost be, in the purports, he says, you have to be one with the Supreme in some ways to render devotional service. So we're hopefully past this, just wanting to merge into the Brahman, and or losing one's identity. There's no happiness in that, really. It's the absence of pain. And so So these people that we're trying to distribute books to, we want them to like us. We want to make a quick friend. And a book distributor is actually one of the best friends a living entity can have, although they may not know it. We want these people to like us so much that they want to go to the temple and come back and see you. Hey, this isn't just a one-time meeting. I want to see you again. I want to see you at the temple this Sunday. And if not this Sunday, well, then definitely the next Sunday. And if they make it to one Sunday, that's actually amazing. And if they go 2 Sundays in a row or they're pretty much in and they're hooked. So that's a goal of ours, is to get, yes, we want them to distribute the book. We want to get them the books and we want them to read them and be excited. And hopefully they can get some more association from the devotees, rather than just that one time. And there's also some Christians that I talked to that day, and he said, "Who is God?" And he said, "I know who God is because Jesus came and it's 2,000 years ago, and there's records of it. I can see it." And I told him a little bit about my past. I have some Christianity in my background. My dad is a Sunday school teacher and a Christian author. And he loves that I found Krishna consciousness, because he knows I'm a spiritual person. I'm able to go into my spirituality in a way that I wasn't beforehand. It was just kind of this vague notion of God. And but Christians and Bhakti Yoga, they have some things in common. I talked to them about how Bhakti Yoga is the science of devotion, of love and devotion. And I just feel sorry for them that they don't have like a nectar of devotion in Christianity. And yes, all of us are on slightly different walks, but we're doing our duties. And we have to see what we have in common, and we have to be inspired by each other and about what they went through to get to where they are today. And if we waste our time with some negativity, we know it's just wasting time, and it's getting in the way of our Krishna consciousnness. So we're learning how to purify the mind, and it can be a sign of how much growing we still have to do. Some of our thoughts, if we can actually notate them, but it can be a sign of how far along the path we are. And everyone's along at a different level. It's really amazing. It's a perfect science that Srila Prabhupada has brought from India. He crossed the Jaladuta, reaching the age of 70 years old. We think that's an older age, where usually we think that's time to retire. Srila Prabhupada is just getting started at 70, and he's tireless, and he put it all into his books and gave it all to his devotees. And he didn't rest much, and because he didn't know how much time exactly he had, and so he gave it his all. And going on to just a little bit about the commonality between some of the world's ancient religions, and you see the Egyptian pyramids, and there's these pyramids all around the world, Central America, of course, India. They came from the Vedic culture. These people left, they were forced out of India. And so these things were brought all around the world, but it started with India. A lot of these things started in India. India's, Krishna is from, he took birth in India. And so much of this stuff around the world we're seeing is got the Vedic roots. All of the languages, we can tell that Sanskrit is the seed language that you can see that so many languages come from. And it's so nice because you can actually, see how to pronounce things right in the texts and the meanings. And I was looking at a word came into my mind recently, and I happened to stumble upon Lithuanians and Sanskrit. So Lithuania actually had, out of all of Europe, they had some of the least contaminated unbroken line between them and the Vedas, because some of the people who are overthrowing some of the and trying to destroy some of the earlier cultures, they were some of the last holdouts. And I thought that was very interesting. And, scientists think life comes from chemicals, but actually, where do these chemicals come from? They come from a person. So, an orange, Srila Prabhupada says, has so many chemicals in it. And so that's, and same with the fingernails, the fingernails are growing. A cow can transform grass into milk, but I can't do that. So that's kind of a mystical quality. It's just so interesting. It's so neat to think that we all have Krishna in our heart as Paramatma, whether it's the small ant or the demigod, Paramatma is in the heart. We've actually got, bacteria. Bacteria has souls too, is said. And so, there's bacteria, of course, in yogurt and things. And so, Srila Prabhupada said, when you take prasadam, you're being very merciful to those living entities too. Sometimes they're getting some prasad. It's interesting to think that in the material world, they elevate people, and the Nobel Prize was named after the man who invented dynamite. So that's not so nice. Going on here, 42, peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, wisdom, knowledge, and religiousness. These are the qualities by which the Brahmanas work. 43, heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the qualities of work for the Kshatriyas. 44, farming, cattle raising, and business are the qualities of work for the Vaishyas, and for the Shudras, there is labor and service to others. 45, by following his qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now please hear from me how this can be done. 46, by worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all pervading, man can, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. Purport, as stated in the 15th chapter, all living beings are fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. As such, the Supreme Lord is the beginning of all living entities. This is confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra, Janmadyasya Yataha. The Supreme Lord is therefore the beginning of life of every living entity. And the Supreme Lord, by his two energies, his external energy and internal energy, is all pervading. Therefore, one should worship the Supreme Lord with his energies. Generally, the Vaishnava devotees worship the Supreme Lord with his internal energy. His external energy is a perverted reflection of the internal energy. The external energy is a background. But the Supreme Lord, by the expansion of his plenary portion as Paramatma, is situated everywhere. He is the supersoul of all demigods, all human beings, all animals, everywhere. One should therefore know that as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, it is his duty to render service unto the Supreme. Everyone should be engaged in devotional service to the Lord in full Krishna consciousness. That is recommended in this verse. Everyone should think that he is engaged in a particular type of occupation by Hrishikesha, the master of the senses. And by the result of the work in which one is engaged, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, should be worshipped. If one thinks always in this way, in full Krishna consciousness, then, by the grace of the Lord, he becomes fully aware of everything. That is the perfection of life. The Lord says in Bhagavad-gita, Tesham eham samudarta. The Supreme Lord himself takes charge of delivering such a devotee. That is the highest perfection of life. In whatever occupation one may be engaged, if he serves the Supreme Lord, he will achieve the highest perfection. He says, at one point, he says, no work is abominable if performed in the service of the Supreme Lord. I'm going to read 47. It is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Prescribed duties according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions. Even a man in knowledge acts according to his own nature. In the next purport, Srila Prabhupada says, similarly, one should not give up his natural occupation because there are some disturbing elements. Rather, one should be determined to serve the Supreme Lord by his occupational duty and Krishna consciousness. That is the perfectional point. When a particular type of occupation is performed for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, all the defects in that particular occupation are purified. When the results of work are purified, when connected with devotional service, one becomes perfect in seeing the self within, and that is self-realization. Seeing the self within and seeing that you're not this body, and this is a temporary body. And so wherever you're at, we're all in different places, and people out there have jobs, and they can perfect these jobs by working with Krishna in mind and giving the results to Krishna, and all day thinking about Krishna. And at first, that's a little intimidating, and that's a challenge. But you can ask the devotees their techniques and inquire from people you really respect, knowledgeable people that have been empowered as teachers and who have great teachers, and they can help you where you're at, and giving up your work and giving the results to Krishna and thinking about Krishna. And as you do that, you can help others too. And that's one of the best ways you can make progress on this path, is by helping the people around you, because we can't just try to help ourselves, and we can help so many other people if we get out of our comfort zones, whether it's the family we were born into, or our co-workers, or someone who's visiting the temple for the first time. And we just can't turn our backs on anyone, really, and it was last week we talked about, your words can either be windows or walls. You can either provide some clarity with our words, or we can put up some walls, and so we have to be careful and open. And recently it was said last week, I think there was a term in the purport, the elevation of renunciation. That's such a nice term. And 48, we've got every endeavor is covered by some sort of fault, just as fire is covered. Even fire has some smoke, some fault. Sure. It's also, these are pure ports, very pure. Purity. So Srila Baladev Vijayabhushana comments, Krishna confirms that all prescribed duties, not only the work of a kshatriya, contain faults or smoke. Even a brahmana's work has defects. One should therefore cleanse away the faulty part of one's duty by offering the duty to the Supreme Lord. And for the sake of self-realization, one should serve, giving careful attention to that part of his duty which gives rise to knowledge. So he says, giving careful attention to that part of his duty which gives rise to knowledge. Rather than renouncing the work, end quote. Rather than renouncing the work born of one's nature, one should worship the Lord through his work. Detachment and devotion while working, not renunciation of the activity, will cancel the defects inherent in the work. Srila Prabhupada's purport to text 47 sums this up. Anything done for personal sense gratification is a cause of bondage. The conclusion is that everyone should be engaged according to the particular mode of nature he has acquired, and he should decide to work only to serve the supreme cause of the Supreme Lord. Worshipping the Lord through our work elevates us in knowledge. Krishna now describes further steps up the yoga ladder. Let me go on to, I want to go over to 51 here. Translation, being purified by his intelligence and controlling the mind with determination, giving up the objects of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred, one who lives in a secluded place, who eats little and who controls the body and the tongue, and is always in trance and is detached, who is without false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, and who does not accept material things, such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. Purport. When one is purified by knowledge, he keeps himself in the mode of goodness. Thus one becomes the controller of the mind and is always in trance. Because he is not attached to the objects of sense gratification, he does not eat more than what he requires, and he controls the activities of his body and mind. He has no false ego because he does not accept the body as himself, nor has he a desire to make the body fat and strong by accepting so many material things. Because he has no bodily concept of life, he is not falsely proud. He is satisfied with everything that is offered to him by the grace of the Lord, and he is never angry in the absence of sense gratification, nor does he endeavor to acquire sense objects. Thus, when he is completely free from false ego, he becomes non-attached to all material things, and that is the stage of self-realization, of Brahman. That stage is called the Brahma Bhuta stage. When one is free from the material conception of life, he becomes peaceful and cannot be agitated. Does anyone have any comments or questions about these verses? Got about a minute or two. Something they're excited, maybe something you're excited about coming up, or something you read recently that just stuck out with you recently, you could add to the class. If not, it's fine. Yes, Rishi Kumar Prabhu.
I liked what you were saying about connecting with the person on Sankirtan. You were saying you kind of listened to them and responded with a question that actually like showed that you understood what they said. And like this, you guys kind of connected. And it was just making me remember sometimes on book distribution, I've heard this point emphasized a lot, and then I've noticed it too, where if I don't connect through japa with Krishna, through his holy name, then I find it almost impossible to connect with anybody on Sankirtan. Like I'll talk to person after person, and sometimes I'm saying something very clear, and it's like they have no idea what I'm saying, or I'm not able to connect with anybody. But then if I can connect with the person who everyone's coming from through his holy name in my japa in the morning, then it's much easier. It seems like the whole day seems to be a reflection of how I've actually connected or made an attempt to connect with Krishna in the japa period. Is this there? Is that too far out of an idea? Or I think I've heard it before.
Thank you for that realization. That's so valuable. Having that presence of mind. We've all had the experience of reading a book and like, oh, I need to read that paragraph again. I was kind of half paying attention. And so that presence of mind, that's a valuable insight. So thank you for that, Prabhu. Bhagavad-gita as it is. Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Hare Ram. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.